Before we jump into getting started with our first project, I want to explain this chapter really quickly. We're going to be creating an animated bumper graphic. This is a graphic element that's often used to transition one scene of video to another scene. Basically, the graphic pops up, and then it tells you a little bit about what's coming up next, and then it transitions out. So now let's jump back to getting started with our first project. The first time you launch After Effects, you should see a screen like this. It's the welcome screen, and it's divided up into two halves. On the left half, we have our recent projects. These are links to your projects on your hard drive. Should you want to open any of those projects, all you have to do is click directly on the link. Now over here on the right-hand side, the top two elements are designed to get you into After Effects very quickly. New composition will create a new comp, and then open project will allow you to actually navigate through your file browser to find any other project that you may have already created. Now, help and support will take you to the help and support section on the Adobe website. And of course, getting started does just that. It takes you to some videos for getting started. Now, just so we don't see this screen every single time we open up After Effects in the future, you can go ahead and just deselect Show Welcome Screen at Startup. Now let's click Close. Right now, we're in kind of a unique situation because for most of you, this is the very first time you've ever opened the application. So what I'm going to show you next is just some basic maintenance things that you need to set up once, and then once it's set up, you don't really have to deal with it much in the future as long as you aren't switching computer systems. So let's get started by looking at our preferences. So as we work in our compositions, everything functions properly. If you click on After Effects on the Mac, you can get to your preferences. In Windows, it's under the Edit command. Now let's go to After Effects, Preferences, and in the General section, I want you to open that by clicking on the word General. Here you can set the levels of undo. As you're working, every time you hit undo, After Effects will just keep going back in time, undoing accordingly. Now, I generally recommend that you leave this alone, but just so you know, you can change that if you'd like. Now, this isn't where we're going to go through absolutely everything in our preferences. The big thing I want you to make sure that you have set up is your media and disk cache. So let's jump down to that section by clicking on media and disk cache here in the left-hand side. Now, disk cache allows After Effects to write important information off to your hard drive, so it's not necessarily always trying to play everything back out of RAM or off of your video card. As a general rule, what you want to do is choose a disk cache location by clicking Choose Folder. Now with this Choose Folder option open, you should navigate to a hard drive and a folder that you'll specify to only contain cache. Now I'm going to click Cancel for now. There's one more setting in Preferences I want you to pay attention to. It's over here, Memory and Multiprocessing. So go back to the left side. It's about the third one up from the bottom. In here, this allows you to specify how much RAM you'd like to use, and it tells you how much RAM you have on your computer. As a general rule, I recommend selecting Render Multiframes simultaneously, and then make sure you have only for render queue selected. Now, rather than trying to explain in depth why each of these are important, just understand checking both of these will allow you to have the best of both worlds, have a decent RAM preview, and still have your system run really quickly when you go to render your projects. As a general rule, I like to have a little bit of CPU reserved for other applications. So here I'm going to go ahead and choose 2 CPUs to use for any other applications. This will allow you to jump out of After Effects and back into After Effects and not necessarily have your entire computer slow down. Now, let's go ahead and click OK, and we have our preferences set up. Now, I know that seemed like a lot, but if you go through those basic steps, it's definitely going to make your After Effects projects work a little bit more quickly. Now, go up under Composition and choose New Composition. This is where we can create a brand new composition to create our graphics in. Now, if you click on the Preset pull-down, notice it's divided up into different sections. The top here is for web settings, and then NTSC and PAL, these are for standard definition broadcast settings. Most people now are working in high definition, and so the next section here focuses on high definition. The bottom section here allows you to set settings for film. Now for the projects that we're going to be working on, let's choose this top HD setting, 720/2997. I'm going to go ahead and choose that, and notice it sets the width and the height of my project. These pixel measurements you'll find also in Photoshop and Illustrator projects. Now, the only other thing I want to make an adjustment to is the frame rate. The standard frame rate for this resolution is 29.97. But since we're doing online training and we want to have as efficient files as possible, we worked at a frame rate of 23.976. So click on this little pull down and let's just change our setting to 23.976. Now, the last thing to look at is the start time code and duration. We can leave the start time code at 0, and the duration, let's go ahead and set this at 10 seconds. So I'm going to type 1000. Your duration setting may have been different. The duration setting will default to the last setting you used when you created a project. So the last project I had created was 5 seconds long. Now, the background color just specifies what color the background, the comp's going to be, so we can go ahead and click OK. Now with our composition created in the project panel, you can see we have an empty timeline and nothing in our canvas. Now that we have our blank project set up and our scratch disks assigned, we're ready to go ahead and save the project. So go up to the File menu and choose Save. Now, if you have access to the exercise files, navigate to your exercise files folder. If you don't, you can go ahead and save your project wherever you like. I just recommend saving it relatively close to where your footage is. Now, in the exercise files, let's navigate to the folder 02. In there, I already have a project by the name I'd like to use, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on that file name, and that'll load the name up into the Save As box. If you need to type it, go ahead and type 02_02_importing. Now, when we go ahead and click Save, I'll just choose Replace, but you can save your project, and it'll be saved into that folder. Again, just remember, when you're saving After Effects projects that have references to external files, you want to try and save your projects near those external files. And we'll continue to reinforce that logic as we get into importing, and we'll definitely do that in the next video.